the new kit from Alpha Model, and that is their Audi RS7 Sportback, and specifically the performance version. So this is basically an upgraded version of already a nicely upgraded car. The RS7 is, but just with a couple of extra bits and some nicer and cooler wheels. So let's have a look at the general contents of the box and then go over them in a bit more detail further on in the video. Thank you, Alpha Model, for sending out this kit and a couple of others for me to build on the channel and share with my audience. If you're interested in purchasing one of these kits, there will be a link in the description down below to the Alpha Model website, along with, of course, the Scalemodeling Channel webshop. So as always, you get a nice and simple instruction manual, a couple pages showing some of the parts that are included, and a general look over of how it is all assembled. Nothing too fancy, but simply more than enough for a kit to be built. This is something new. Usually this is already put onto the box itself on the outside right here, but it's now a separate picture. Pretty cool, really nice artwork, so to speak. And something I noticed already, these are the performance wheels, which I would have liked to have seen, but they are not included in this kit. They have this other version. I'd much prefer to see this one, so maybe I should print some versions of my own or go an entirely other custom route. Let me know what you guys want to see down in the comment section below. So let's get the standard stuff out of the way first. The chassis, this is an expensive kit. It does not have an engine, but at least they have started to add a lot more detail on the chassis without having it a flat bare piece. So that is really good to see. It is a little bit dirty from the demolding probably, so it does need a little bit of a cleanup and a degrease before painting. Otherwise, really nice details and a step up from some of their earlier kits, definitely. There are some other components for the chassis, like the exhaust. In this case, it has the muffler section and the exhaust tips as well, molded separately, has some nice detail on the inside, and in general just looks like a really good, clean part. Suspension, if you've seen an Alpha Model kit before, nothing to speak of. For the disc brakes, you get some center parts that are cast resin, and then on the photo etch pieces you will get some pieces for usually the front, the back, and some additional detailing. Of course, the calipers are separate parts. These are the big boys for the front, and you also have some smaller ones for the rear. And then of course the wheels, you get smaller wheels for the front, or at least narrower and wider for the rear. Some nice rubber tires, really nice and flexible. They are a bit shiny, but nothing a little tire shine would do on a real car. That looks out of place here. There is a little bit of flashing and stuff from the molding process on the back side, but nothing major. It does fit nicely onto the wheel itself, which is also a super clean cast. A little bit of flashing, but again, nothing that can't easily be removed. There are some photo etch pieces which go on top of the wheel, but I will show you later on to get a sort of diamond cut effect and really make it convincing by being actual metal components. So from the chassis we're going to move upwards to the interior. It has a nice base plate which you can of course add some carpet to or not, and then all of the other components just slot on top of this one. You get some seats for the rear and for the front too. It has some really nice and deep engraving to separate the parts from all of the other parts. This part in the center will be painted a different color. I'm going to go for a classic color scheme that I've seen recently done on a 1-to-1 Audi RS6 that I really like for the replication, sort of, so to speak, of the Audi RS2 from back in the day. So if that's something you know, then you're probably going to know what's going to go on with this build. Now, nonetheless, this one makes it a lot easier to do as it has deep panel lines and very nice and crisp detailing all around. A lot of parts seem to be missing, which makes it a lot easier to paint them in different colors if need be. And the same goes for the front. The same detailing, same crispness, and a lot of upgrades from previous kits with a lot cleaner casting and a lot crisper lines. So as far as detailing goes, not only the seats have a lot of crisp details in it, the door panels, the dashboard, all of the other components have the same level of attention and detailing put into them. So on the door panels, there are a lot of panels missing right here. You can see the door handles themselves, some inlay pieces, some more inlay pieces, and even some more inlay pieces, which makes it a lot easier, again, to paint it in 2, 3, or even 4 different colors if you want to. Same goes for the dashboard. The gauge cluster is missing, the steering column is missing, some pieces for the display right here, and for some buttons right here are missing as well, along with even some speakers for the upgraded sound system, which is a really cool touch they've done on this one. Now there are way too many pieces to go over. This is probably not even half of them for the additional detail parts. So for the steering wheel, you get the main outer wheel itself, and then you get the center part with the buttons and the electronics in it, and then there's even a separate one for the airbag. Same goes for the gauge cluster, also a separate part. Really nice for detailing, gives a lot more depth and realism to all of the parts being actual separate parts, so that's good to see. But that does mean quite a lot of work. Nonetheless, for the assembly process, this should be a ton of fun. Now, like I've shown before, not only the steering wheel, all of the other interior components have the same amount of detail. These are some of the speaker components that I was talking about earlier for on top of the dashboard and all around the other interior bits. Some trim panels, door handles, even the armrests, etc. And then, of course, all of the other bits for around the interior to fill up the empty spaces. Even the indicator and stalks for on the steering column, you can name it, it's pretty much all there. So now you've seen the chassis, the interior, let's move on to the exterior. Same amount of detail, same approach to all of the parts, a lot of separate parts, a lot of details, and in general just a good looking kit so far. The grille is partially see-through, so some photo etch intercoolers or radiators and stuff like that can go behind it for a lot of depth and detail to be shown there. Same goes for the small side fins, all really nice, crisp and clean casting with a ton of sharp details. Now, of course, that's not all. We have plenty of other parts to show as well, and some other cool things that I haven't seen before, at least not on alpha model kits, which is really nice to see that they've moved on to doing as well. The separate door handles they have done for a while, which is a lot nicer of a detail. As you can see, the clear depth and gives a better effect to those. And then for the mirrors, since these are usually painted in 2 different colors or 2 different materials on Audis, you can have these in a sort of metal look. Also, of course, the body color, maybe even black, or in a carbon fiber. Now this top piece is now a separate part, which can then be painted, and the lower half, which I don't have right here, but it is somewhere in the kit, is usually a black plastic, so that is a lot easier to do now with 2 separate components. Then for all of the details all around, we have the small splitter on the front, even the side skirt extension bits, which are probably going to be done in either an aluminum or in a carbon fiber, and then the same one for the trim piece on the rear bumper. And then, of course, as usual, the head and taillight buckets themselves, with Audis having some pretty detailed designs these days, or at least for a long time now already. It is good to see that these are translated into the kit as well. And if all of that was not enough yet, then there's plenty more other stuff to show you guys. There are some decal and transfer sheets. These are metal transfers, basically just stickers for some emblems, a small trim piece on the steering wheel airbag, along with the logos for on the exterior, some mirror bits, etc. And then also some metal decals for on the center caps of the wheels and the Audi RS7 logos around the exterior. And then plenty more of photo edge sheets. Now these are for the seat belts. I don't really like using these as they need to be bent all in shape and painted, and once you paint them and then bend them, that usually means the paint flakes off, so I'm just going to go for some fabric ones. Nonetheless, the detail is really nice, and maybe I should just give it a try, but we'll see. Of course, there are some smaller detail bits for the basic stuff, some more badges and emblems, some seatbelt stuff, a lot of metal trim pieces for, I believe, on the interior. So, for instance, if you lose the metal sticker, then you still have an extra badge here, along with all of the other trim bits all around. There are even some larger sheets of photo edge, ones with a couple of nameplates, some of the additional bits for on the disc brakes, some pedals, license plates, some more pedal details, and all other stuff. Then this one is a pretty cool one for the wheels. Like I mentioned, there is the option to go for a full black or for full silver wheel, but you could also go a step further and add some metal to the actual diamond cutting of the wheel. Along with that, there are some more grills, I believe, for the exterior, some speaker meshes, and additional detailing for the interior. Then there is a final big sheet with some of the window trim, some more stuff for on the interior for behind the seats, some grills, some meshes, and the disc brake details. And then the final one for the detail side of things is a sheet of decals. Now this one is filled to the brim with carbon fiber, which is really cool to see. They are all pre-cut, labeled, and in the instructions you can clearly see where they need to go, which makes it a lot easier to place all of them. You don't have to do some custom templates like you usually would. Simply just put the decals into some water, slide them in place, and form them to the pieces, which saves a lot of time. The carbon fiber has a really nice pattern to it already, and from past things I've seen with the decals, these should slide on perfectly and have the really nice fitting and styling that you're used to from these kits. For the exterior, you get some clear parts too. These are for the main windows. They are pre-painted and pre-cut, so you simply just need to pull them off, remove the protective film from both sides, and glue them in place. Now usually these are the parts that I dread most on these builds, as they are very hard to glue on, a really thin edge to glue. As you can see, there's not much of an area to glue onto, so that is usually the toughest bit of the build. So I'm not really looking forward to it, but hopefully it turns out just fine. Alongside this small sheet, there is also a little bag with clear parts included too. These are the ones that are cast out of clear resin, specifically for some of the curved areas which would not be able to be done with these flat sheets. So this one is for the taillights. They still need to be painted, but they have a lot of complex shapes and forms to them, which just makes it a lot easier to put them in place and makes it look a bit like a regular kit would have some of these clear parts in. Now they are a little bit flexible. As you can see, this one is a little bit bent, but with a bit of glue, this should just hold in place really easily. And then finally, we have the exterior as well. So as you can see, I've already shown pretty much all of the separate parts and pieces. This one has in the front all of the grills, some of the spoiler bits for underneath, of course the headlights, taillights, and some of the trim surrounds here as well. You could all just glue that in place and paint it at once, but just make it easier on yourself and paint all of the parts separately. This one seems to be a really clean casting, no bubbles or imperfections that I can see. Usually on the bottom there are some, in this case there are as well, but they have been filled and fixed by the factory before sending them out, so that's a good thing from the quality control section that they use there. The panel lines are not as deep as I'd like to see them, but then with the casting and molding, that is pretty much impossible sometimes, I think, as well, specifically once the molds get a little bit older. These are the things that give way first. So a little bit of scribing does need to be done, but nothing out of place and nothing that we wouldn't do anyway either. So I did give a quick glance on the instructions at the beginning of the video, nothing special, just some basic instructions naming the parts and coloring them in so you can clearly see which needs to go where. Nothing special, just a bit of a clean instruction sheet for all of the separate components. Nice to see, easy to follow, and just using a little bit of common sense, you should be able to figure this out pretty easily.